Hello there. Following on from my last episode talking about Bridget St. John's first record, Ask Me No Questions, I almost said self-titled. I don't know why, my brain just makes me go there. Anyway, I wanted to focus on some records in my collection that are made primarily by women. So this first one is one I'm really excited to talk about. It's a record that holds a lot of personal meaning to me, and I'm sure many other people, and that's Judy Sill's Heart Food. So this is a UK first pressing on Asylum Records. She rather famously had a split with David Geffen. He seems like someone who's quite easy to fall out with, like most label bosses are, a bit of a Richard Branson type. Full of platitudes, but not much final push, which unfortunately is very common in the music industry. She was absolutely fantastic, Judy Sill, a truly idiosyncratic blend of sort of Americana, this sort of almost like Wild West sensibility paired with gospel and ambitious arrangements. You can really tell that she had it clearly laid out in her mind before she ever stepped foot into a studio. It's meticulous. That's the word I'd use to describe it. It is like Brian Wilson meets Tom Waits, which is probably not a fair comparison, but maybe you know what I mean there. So we've got this beautiful first pressing, barely played. I think the reason I was able to get this a bit cheaper was that the cover has a lot of laminate rips on it, ripples, which is common. And I'd rather have a laminated cover than a US copy because they age so much better. The US one probably is the one to have because it's got jig at the end and it's got the gatefold and all the pictures, but I don't know. I love me a UK pressing of an album. Something about it. So that is Heart Food. Favourite songs on this one? The Kiss, obviously, is one of the most beautiful songs ever made. Everything that I could possibly say about The Kiss has been said better by Andy Partridge. So if you want to find someone talk about Judy Sill in a really beautiful way, go and find Andy Partridge, because coming from his mouth, it's far more meaningful than mine. Anyway, the next album I'd like to talk to you about is The Road to Ruin. So this isn't strictly an album by a woman, it's by a duo, a husband and wife duo. Now, John Martin is a tricky character for me. I think a lot of his music is absolutely gorgeous. And he was clearly a very talented individual. He had moments of being a really fun guy, great to be around. He was also an abusive monster as well. And a lot of musicians in the 1970s, especially in that folk scene, when you read into their personal lives, you see a lot of tragedy, you see a lot of behaviour that wouldn't be acceptable nowadays. But I don't want to focus on John, because really the most important name on this album for me is Beverly. Now, more so you could say on Stormbringer, it's John Martin hijacking a Beverly project. But this really does feel like a union between the two. I take it this wasn't really a very easy record to make. None of these sort of albums were, and I think it took a lot out of Beverly to make this. Anyway, Auntie Aviator. What more can you say? That is one of the best folk songs of the time period. And this album, to me, it feels like a companion piece to Nick Drake's Brighter Later, because you've got a lot of the same instrumentalists on it. You've got Paul Harris on piano. You've got... Ooh, who else have you got? Have you got Ray Worley? Yes, you got Ray Worley. He always pops up, and I wouldn't be surprised if Tristan Fry was somewhere there in the background as well. But yes, that's for another day. Nick Drake, I could go on about him all day. Beverly was a singer and a songwriter in her own right. She was actually successful before John. She had, I believe, the first ever single for the Derham label in 1967, just under the name Beverly. But she wrote some fantastic songs. Primrose Hill. I really love Auntie Aviator, obviously. And yeah, although the track list is still mostly dominated by John, it's her voices that bring it together for me. I think at this stage, she was the more established singer. She was more confident in the direction her voice could take a song, whereas John really needed a few albums to grow into that. And I think by the time he got to Breath So Ever, that's when his songwriting and his singing and performance style really blossomed into its own unique thing. But he needed Beverly as a launch pad, so can't forget Beverly, very important. Bridget St. John. I said I was going to talk about this album, and I will, because it's brilliant. UK first pressing on Dandelion. It's got that sort of leather, faux leather textured cover, which ages awfully, but I don't care. I like that there's the same photo on the front as there is on the back. Love that. Love when records are made kind of in a rush. But that was not a rush job, was it? And that printing on the textured paper does not do it justice. That is a beautiful gatefold, so fair enough. Fair enough, Dandelion, fair enough. Love that label. I think this label redesign is stronger than the original because you get this sort of flip over where it goes on this side, and it's like Vertigo, you know, it's like a lot of the in-house labels used to do back in the early 70s. They would have all this beautiful art on one side. Transatlantic as well, I believe, did that as well with Jan Dukes de Grey and Ralph McTell and all that. Anyway, this is a beautiful album. Ron Geeson's arrangements really elevate her songs rather than clutter and overburden them. I know that some people find his arrangement style to be quite distracting, and I think on things like Atom Heart Mother certainly is. But, you know, he's not Robert Kirby. You don't get him onto a song to slot in nicely. You bring him onto a song for his distinct flavour and his distinct characteristic and his humour. And I can hear his humour all over this record. And with an artist like Bridget, you need that because she can be quite, you know, melancholic and oppressive almost. There's a darkness, there's a richness to her voice, and it works really well with his arrangements. So A Day Away is beautiful. Her cover of Back to Stay is a definitive version of that song. Talking about John Martin again, it's a beautiful song, but she makes it a masterpiece. And Making Losing Better, it's a beautiful song. If you've been there, I could go on about that album all day. Absolutely beautiful listen, especially on an early morning. Go for an early morning walk. Listen to Songs for the Gentleman. Very, very strong second release from Bridget there. And I would also like to talk about Laura Nyro, or Nero. I've heard it pronounced multiple different ways, and I don't know which one is the correct one. This is a brilliant album. This is her best album, in my opinion, Christmas and the Beads of Sweat. I got this album in a Polish record store when I was interrailing. And it's a UK pressing. It's reasonably clean. It's seen better days, but this is a brilliant album. Brown Earth. It's like the best song that Carole King never wrote. And then you got When I Was a Freeport, you were the main drag. Black Patch makes it a bit darker. Being on a Train is haunting. You know, you've got to be in the right frame of mind to listen to that one. It's all about heroin. It's all about urban decay. Up on the Roof, covering Goffin and King, and performing it in a way that they could never perform it. She's got a very expressive voice. That's underselling it. Laura Nyro is notorious as a uncompromising and fearless artist, and no more is this clearer than on Christmas and the Beads of Sweat, especially on the B-side. The B-side is the strongest part of this record. Upstairs by a Chinese Lamp, one of my favourite songs ever made. The piano figure is absolutely beautiful, the arrangement, you've got Alice Coltrane on it, it's like, what more do you want? And then, I believe she brings Duane Allman, doesn't she, on Map to the Treasure? Where is it? Suitably, in typical Laura style, she's written it in her own hand, and I can't read any of it. Chuck Rainey, he's always there, isn't he? Alice Coltrane. I'm going to say that he is on this. I can't actually see him there, but I think he is. He might be under like a fake name because of contractual things, but yeah, he's on Map to the Treasure, I believe. Brilliant album. New notes. New newts. You're wonderful, Laura. You're wonderful.